The sky above Thesan Prime burned orange and red as another explosion lit up the horizon. High Counselor Nixvara stood at the window of the Grand Chamber, her thin fingers pressed against the glass. Her pale blue skin glowed faintly in the darkness, the natural bioluminescence of her people flickering with fear. "They have destroyed the eastern settlements," said Commander Orensal, his voice shaking. He was tall for a Velari, but still fragile by any standard. His bones were hollow, his muscles weak. The Velari had evolved on a gentle world with low gravity and no predators. They had never needed to fight. Now they were dying. "How many ships remain in orbit?" Nixvara asked without turning around. 83 Krath warships, High Counselor. They have complete control of our space." Nixvara closed her large, dark eyes. The Krath Dominion had arrived 3 days ago with demands for total surrender. When the Velari refused, the bombardment began. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years were now ash and rubble. Ambassador Tevril rushed into the chamber, his robes torn and dirty. "The communication relay is damaged, but I have managed to send an emergency signal to the Galactic Coalition. Our allies should receive it within hours." "Should?" Nixvara turned to face him. Tevril's glow dimmed with shame. "The main relay was destroyed. I had to use a backup system. The signal may have scattered." "Scattered where?" "I do not know. Everywhere. Anywhere. Into sectors we have never mapped." Orensal made a sound of despair. "Then we are truly alone." Above them, another wave of Krath ships descended through the atmosphere. Their weapons carved lines of fire across the planet's surface. Somewhere in the distance, screaming began. Nixvara straightened her spine. Her people were peaceful. They were artists, philosophers, and scientists. They had joined the Galactic Coalition 200 years ago, believing that friendship and diplomacy would protect them forever. They had been wrong. "Keep broadcasting," she ordered. "Someone will hear us." The hours passed slowly. The Krath warlord, a brutal creature named Drethax, sent another message demanding surrender. He promised that the killing would stop if Nixvara gave him what he wanted. She knew he was lying. The Krath did not take slaves or prisoners. They simply conquered and consumed. Then, as the sun began to set on the burning world, something happened. A communication officer burst into the Grand Chamber, her eyes wide with shock. "High Counselor, we have received a response to our distress signal." Nixvara felt hope spark in her chest. "The Coalition?" "No, High Counselor. The signal came from somewhere else." The officer's hands trembled as she activated the display screen. A voice filled the chamber. It was deep and calm, speaking in a language the translation systems barely recognized. The words were simple, but carried an unmistakable weight. "This is Admiral Daniel Carter of the Terran Federation ship Horizon. We have received your distress call. A response fleet is being assembled. Estimated arrival, 14 hours. Hold your position. Help is coming." The message ended. Silence filled the room. Orensal spoke first. "Terran? I do not recognize that species name." Tevril had gone completely still. His glow had faded to almost nothing, which happened only when a Velari experienced extreme fear. His voice came out as a whisper. "Terran, Terra. It is another name for Earth." Nixvara frowned. "I do not understand. What is Earth?" "It is a planet," Tevril said slowly. "In the sector we call the Death Zone." The words hung in the air like poison. Every Velari child grew up hearing stories about the Death Zone. It was a region of space that the Galactic Coalition had declared forbidden 300 years ago. No ships were allowed to enter. No contact was permitted. The reasons were never fully explained, but the warnings were clear. Something lived there that should never be disturbed. "The Death Zone?" Orensol's voice cracked. Our signal reached the death zone? And something answered. Tevriel confirmed. Nixvara felt cold despite the fires burning outside. What lives there? What are these? Humans? Tevriel moved to the information archives with shaking hands. He pulled up files that had been sealed for centuries, documents that most Valari had never seen. Humans, he read aloud. Native species of planet Earth, also called Terra. Gravity classification. Heavy. Atmospheric conditions. Toxic mix. High oxygen content. Native wildlife. Extremely hostile. Climate. Unstable, featuring extreme temperatures. Violent storms. Seismic activity. And volcanic eruptions. He paused, his voice dropping even lower. Species classification. Category 9 Deathworlders. The highest possible rating. Earth is considered one of the most dangerous planets capable of supporting life in the known galaxy. The Galactic Coalition voted to quarantine the entire sector to prevent contact. Arnsol grabbed the edge of a table for support. We have summoned monsters to our world. We have summoned something, Nixvara said quietly. She looked back out the window at the Krath ships still raining death upon her people. But the Krath are already here. They are already killing us. What could be worse? Tevriel's answer came reluctantly. The reports say that humans are persistent predators. They chase their prey until it dies of exhaustion. They heal from wounds that would kill any other species. They consume poison for pleasure. They keep deadly animals as companions. They fight wars against each other for entertainment. He set down the datapad. The Coalition did not quarantine Earth because humans were primitive. They quarantined it because humans were terrifying. Nixvara absorbed this information in silence. Outside, another building collapsed in flames. She could hear the cries of her people, smell the smoke, feel the trembling of the ground as Krath weapons tore her world apart. 14 hours, she said finally. The humans said 14 hours. Aye, Counselor, Arnsol pleaded. Perhaps we should surrender to the Krath before. Before what? Nixvara cut him off. Before we see what the Death Zone sends to help us. She turned to face her advisors, and for the first time since the invasion began, there was steel in her voice. The Krath will kill us all. That is certain. These humans, they answered a call for help. They said they were coming to save us. They could be lying, Tevriel said. They could be, Nixvara agreed. But the Krath are not lying when they bomb our cities. I will take the unknown over certain death. She straightened her robes and lifted her chin. Tell our people to hold on. Tell them help is coming. Tevriel hesitated. And if they ask what kind of help? Nixvara looked at the stars beyond the smoke, somewhere toward the forbidden sector where ships were now racing toward her dying world. Tell them the truth, she said softly. We do not know, but something is coming. Something even the galaxy fears. Far away, beyond the borders of known space, 47 warships powered up their engines. Admiral Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the horizon, reading the distress signal one more time. A peaceful species, civilians, under attack. He turned to his crew. Maximum speed, he ordered. Every second counts. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, and the stars blurred into lines of light. The humans were coming. The Valari Council gathered in the underground bunker as the bombardment continued above. 30 of the most important leaders of their civilization sat around a stone table, their soft glows creating the only light in the room. Fear made the air heavy. We must discuss what we have done, said Elder Kesmora, the oldest member of the council. We have invited Deathworlders to our planet. We did not invite anyone, Nixvara replied calmly. We sent a distress signal. The humans chose to answer. The result is the same. Kesmora's voice was bitter. We flee from one monster into the arms of another. Ambassador Tevril stood and activated a holographic display. I have spent the night researching everything the Coalition archives contain about humans. I believe the Council should understand what is coming. The room fell silent. Even the distant explosions seemed to fade as Tevril began to speak. Earth is a world of constant violence. Its gravity is nearly twice that of Thesan Prime. Humans carry that weight from the moment they are born until the moment they die. Their bones are dense. Their muscles are powerful. A human child could overpower a fully grown Valari warrior. He changed the display to show images of Earth. The Council gasped at the sight of massive oceans, towering mountains, and storms that covered entire continents. Their planet tries to kill them constantly. They have earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and volcanic eruptions. They have seasons where water falls frozen from the sky. They have regions so hot that the ground itself burns. And yet they survive. They thrive. Another image appeared showing Earth's wildlife. Creatures with teeth and claws, massive predators that seem designed for nothing but killing. These are the animals humans share their planet with. And humans do not hide from them. They hunt them. They tame them. They keep some of the most dangerous creatures as pets. Orensal spoke up. How did such beings ever develop civilization? Through war, Tevril answered. Humans have been fighting each other since before they developed writing. They have had thousands of conflicts. Millions of their own kind have died in battles against each other. And they continue. Every generation. Always fighting. The Council members exchanged horrified looks. But there is something else, Tevril continued. Something the old records mention but do not explain well. Humans are also known for helping. Helping? Casmora sounded doubtful. The records show that humans will sometimes risk their lives to save complete strangers. They will fight impossible battles for people they have never met. They form bonds with other species quickly and deeply. They adopt abandoned creatures and raise them as family. Tevril turned off the display. The Coalition could not understand this contradiction. How could the same species that wages constant war also show such compassion? It frightened them. Anything they could not predict or control frightened them. So they chose isolation. Mixvara nodded slowly. So humans are dangerous, but perhaps not evil. Perhaps, Tevril agreed. But I cannot promise anything. We have never truly interacted with them. No one has for 300 years. The ground shook as a particularly close explosion rocked the bunker. Dust fell from the ceiling. The Council remembered why they were having this conversation in the first place, far across the galaxy. Admiral Daniel Carter walked through the corridors of the horizon. The ship hummed with energy as it traveled through hyperspace at maximum speed. Around him, crew members prepared for battle. He entered the main briefing room where his senior officers waited. Captain Lara Mitchell stood near the tactical display, her arms crossed. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Lieutenant Kevin Blake sat at the computer console, running calculations. He was young, barely 30, but Carter had never met anyone faster with numbers. Report, Carter said as he took his seat. The Valari homeworld is under siege by the Krath Dominion, Mitchell began. We have identified 83 enemy warships in orbit. Ground forces have been deployed to the surface. Civilian casualties are estimated in the millions. Carter's jaw tightened. What do we know about the Krath? Blake pulled up the information. Conquering species. They take what they want and destroy the rest. No diplomatic relations with anyone. Considered a threat by most of the galaxy, but no one has been willing to stop them. Until now, Carter said quietly. Mitchell nodded. Our fleet consists of 47 warships, 12 carriers, and 200 support vessels. We are outnumbered in heavy ships, but our firepower is superior. It always is, Blake muttered, earning a small smile from Mitchell. Carter looked at the star map showing their destination. The Valari are a peaceful species. They have never fought a war. They probably cannot even understand what is happening to them. They called for help, Mitchell said. We answered. We did. Carter stood and faced his officers. I want everyone to understand something. These people are not our allies. They are not part of any agreement or treaty. We owe them nothing except what we choose to give. He paused, letting the words sink in. And I choose to give them everything. We will destroy the Krath fleet. We will secure the planet. We will protect these people because it is the right thing to do. Questions? Mitchell shook her head. Blake grinned. No questions, Admiral. Just eager to get started. Carter allowed himself a small smile. Good. Have the Marine commanders report to the briefing room. I want boarding parties ready the moment we exit hyperspace. In another part of the fleet, Sergeant Maria Santos checked her weapons for the 5th time. She sat in the armory of the assault ship Thunder, surrounded by the men and women of her squad. They were the best soldiers in the fleet, hardened by years of training and combat. Listen up, she called out. We have 12 hours until we reach the target. I want everyone rested and ready. This is a rescue mission first, combat mission second. There will be civilians on that planet. Scared civilians who have never seen a human before. Corporal Danny Webb looked up from his rifle. He was the youngest member of the squad, with a face that still looked too soft for war. Sarge, what if they are afraid of us? They will be, Santos replied honestly. Everyone is afraid of us at first. It is our job to show them they do not need to be. We save people, Webb. That is what we do. Medic Lisa Tran finished organizing her supplies. I have enough medical equipment to treat 500 casualties, human or otherwise. Their biology is different, but I have studied the files. Good. Santa stood and looked at her squad. These Valari people sent a signal into the void, hoping someone would care enough to help. We are that someone. Do not let them down. The soldiers nodded, their faces serious. Back on Thiessen Prime, the night grew darker as more fire spread across the land. Nixvara stood on a balcony, watching her world burn. Behind her, Tavriel approached quietly. The humans will arrive in 10 hours, he said. I know. The Krath will likely destroy more cities before then. I know that too. Tavriel stood beside her. Are you afraid of what is coming? Nixvara considered the question carefully. I am afraid of everything right now. The Krath, the humans, the future. But I have made my choice. We asked for help, and help is coming. Whatever form it takes, we will face it together. She turned to look at the stars. Somewhere out there, the most dangerous species in the galaxy is racing to save us. I do not understand why, but I am grateful. Tavriel followed her gaze. Perhaps we were wrong about them. Perhaps everyone was wrong. Perhaps, Nixvara agreed. We will find out soon enough. The hours counted down. The fleet drew closer. And on Thiessen Prime, the Valari waited for the monsters who might be their only salvation. The Krath flagship Devastator hung in orbit above Thiessen Prime like a metal moon. Warlord Dreth Axe sat on his command throne, watching the planet burn on the view screens. His gray, scaled skin reflected the orange glow of distant fires. His 4 eyes blinked slowly with satisfaction. Report, he growled. 70% of major cities destroyed, his second officer announced. Civilian casualties estimated at 40 million. The Valari leadership remains hidden in underground bunkers. Drethax made a sound that might have been laughter. Fragile creatures. They break so easily. Continue the bombardment. I want nothing left standing by morning. Yes, Warlord. The officer hesitated. Drethax noticed immediately. Speak. Our sensors detected an unusual transmission several hours ago. The Valari sent a distress signal, but it was misdirected. It traveled into restricted space. Restricted space? Drethax leaned forward. Which sector? The Death Zone, Warlord. A moment of silence passed. Even Drethax, who feared nothing in the galaxy, knew the stories about the Death Zone. Everyone did. It was a region of space that the Galactic Coalition had sealed away generations ago. Rumors spoke of a species so dangerous that even the mighty Coalition had chosen isolation over conflict. Did anything respond? Drethax asked carefully. Yes, Warlord. A fleet is approaching from that sector. Estimated arrival, 2 hours. Drethax stood from his throne. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with claws that could tear through metal. He had conquered 17 worlds. He had killed millions. He had never retreated from any enemy. Show me this fleet. The view screen changed to display a distant sensor reading. Dozens of ships moving at incredible speed. Their design was unfamiliar, angular, and aggressive. The energy readings were unusually high. What species? Drethax demanded. Unknown, Warlord. The ships match no configuration in our database. Drethax studied the approaching fleet. Part of him felt something he had not experienced in years. It took him a moment to recognize the emotion as unease. Then he pushed it aside. He was Drethax. He had never lost a battle. Form defensive positions, he ordered. Whatever comes from the Death Zone, we will destroy it. 2 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Thesan system. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the tactical display update with enemy positions. 83 craft ships. Exactly as reported. They were large, heavily armed, and positioned to intercept any approaching force. Open a channel, Carter ordered. All frequencies. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, Admiral. Carter's voice was calm and clear when he spoke. This is Admiral Daniel Carter of the Terran Federation's 7th Fleet. You are engaged in hostile action against the civilian population. Withdraw immediately, or you will be removed. This is your only warning. The message broadcast across all channels. On Thesan Prime, the Valari heard it through their damaged communication systems. In the underground bunker, Nixvara gripped Tevriel's arm as the human voice filled the room. Removed, she whispered. He said removed, as if the Krath were simply an obstacle. On the Devastator, Drethax listened to the message with growing anger. No one spoke to him this way. No one threatened the Krath Dominion and lived. Send a response, he snarled. Tell these creatures that the Krath do not negotiate. Tell them that if they do not leave immediately, they will share the fate of this world. The response was transmitted. Carter listened without expression. Admiral, Mitchell said quietly, they are not going to withdraw. No, Carter agreed. They are not. He turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Blake, target analysis. Blake's fingers flew across his console. Enemy ships are heavy cruiser class. Strong frontal armor, weaker rear sections. Weapons appear to be plasma-based, effective at medium range. Recommended approach. Close fast, hit hard. Do not give them time to concentrate fire. Agreed. Carter looked at the fleet display. All ships, advance formation. Do not stop until we reach optimal firing range. The human fleet began to move. 47 warships accelerated directly toward the Krath defensive line. They made no attempt to hide or maneuver. They simply charged. On Thesan Prime, Arnsal watched the sensor readings with disbelief. They are flying straight at the enemy. 83 ships against 47. This is madness. Oh, confidence, Tevriel said quietly. Drathax watched the approaching fleet with narrowed eyes. The human ships were not slowing down. They were not spreading into evasive patterns. They were coming in a tight formation, weapons already powering up. "Fire when in range," he ordered. The first Krath volley launched across space. Dozens of plasma bolts streaked toward the human fleet. The shots were accurate and powerful. Any coalition ship would have been forced to evade or take catastrophic damage. The human ships didn't either. The Horizon took 3 direct hits to its forward hull. Explosions flashed across its surface. Smoke and debris scattered into the void. And then the smoke cleared, and the ship was still coming. Its hull was scorched but intact. Its engines had not even flickered. By the dark stars, Drathax breathed. The human fleet entered optimal range and opened fire. The first Krath cruiser exploded in a ball of light as concentrated railgun fire tore through its hull. The second and third followed within seconds. Human weapons were not flashy. They did not glow or spark. They simply punched through armor like it was made of paper. Captain Mitchell led a squadron of destroyers through a gap in the Krath formation. A ship, the Valor, moved with speed that seemed impossible for a vessel its size. She targeted the engines of a Krath warship and watched it go dark as her weapons shredded its propulsion systems. "Boarding teams ready," she reported. "Enemy ship disabled." On the surface of Thesan Prime, the Valari watched the battle through whatever sensors still functioned. They saw human ships absorbing hits that would destroy any vessel they had ever known. They saw the Krath fleet, which had seemed so unstoppable, breaking apart under the human assault. A Valari child named Siriva looked up at her mother. "Are those the monsters?" Her mother could not answer. She had never seen anything like this. The humans fought with a ferocity that was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. In orbit, Drathax realized he had made a terrible mistake. The stories about Deathworlders were not exaggerated. If anything, they were understated. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel." He commanded. 20 Krath ships turned their weapons on the horizon. Plasma fire converged on the human flagship from every direction. The ship disappeared behind a wall of explosions and flame. For a moment, the Krath thought they had won. Then the Horizon emerged from the fire, trailing smoke but still fighting. Admiral Carter's voice came over the communication channel. "Is that all you have?" The human fleet did not slow down. They pushed deeper into the Krath formation, ships moving past each other in a deadly dance. The Valor took a direct hit to its side, hull plates tearing away into space. Mitchell did not even order evasive action. She simply turned her ship toward the attacker and returned fire. The Krath began to panic. They had fought many species. They had conquered worlds defended by advanced civilizations. But they had never faced anything like this. The humans did not retreat when damaged. They did not surrender when outnumbered. They just kept coming, kept fighting, kept killing. "Warlord," an officer shouted. "We have lost 30 ships." Drathax stared at the battle display. 30 ships? In less than an hour. Against a smaller fleet. "Fall back," he ordered. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions." Admiral Carter heard the order through intercepted communications. "They are trying to regroup," Blake reported. Carter nodded slowly. "Do not let them." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships weapons free. No Krath vessel leaves this system." The human fleet spread out, cutting off every escape route. The hunt had begun. On Thesan Prime, Nexvara watched a single human destroyer chase down 3 Krath cruisers that tried to flee. The destroyer destroyed all 3 without taking any visible damage. "What are they?" Oren Sol whispered. Nixvara had no answer. She only knew one thing for certain. The monsters had arrived, and they were on her side. The space battle had become a massacre. but not the kind the Krath had planned. Their mighty fleet was falling apart. Ship after ship exploded under human weapons fire. Those that tried to flee were hunted down by fast destroyers. Those that surrendered were boarded by Marine teams. Admiral Carter watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The Krath had killed millions of innocent Valari. They would not escape justice. "Fighter squadrons, clear a path for dropships," he ordered. "We need boots on the ground." Rick Coleman led his squadron through the chaos of battle. His fighter was small and fast, designed for close combat. Around him, enemy ships burned and broke apart. He spotted a cluster of Krath interceptors trying to form up. "Fox Squadron, follow me," he called. 14 human fighters dove into the enemy formation. The Krath pilots were skilled, but they had never faced opponents who flew like this. Coleman twisted his ship through angles that should have been impossible. His body pressed hard against his seat by the forces involved. He fired twice, and 2 enemy ships disappeared in balls of flame. In 3 minutes. His squadron destroyed every Krath interceptor in the area. "Path is clear," Coleman reported. "Dropships, you are free to proceed." On the surface of Thesan Prime, Sergeant Santos felt her ship shake as it entered the atmosphere. Beside her, 20 Marines sat in their seats, weapons ready. They were the first human soldiers to ever set foot on an alien world. "Landing zone is the capital city," Santos announced. "Valari civilians are trapped in underground shelters. Krath ground forces are hunting them. Our job is to stop that hunt." Corporal Webb gripped his rifle tighter. His heart was pounding. He had trained for years for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare someone for their first real combat drop. Medic Tran sat calmly, checking her medical supplies one last time. She had seen battle before. She knew what was coming. The dropship hit the ground hard. The doors opened, and Santos was first out, her boots hitting the broken pavement of a Valari street. The city around her was devastated. Buildings had collapsed. Fires burned everywhere. The air smelled of smoke and death. "Move out," she ordered. Standard formation. The Marines advanced through the ruins. They encountered their first Krath patrol within minutes. 4 large soldiers, scales gleaming in the firelight, weapons raised. The Krath opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts screamed through the air. Santos dove behind cover, returned fire, and watched her shots tear through the lead enemy soldier. The other Marines engaged with practiced precision. In seconds, all 4 Krath were dead. "Contact neutralized," Santos reported. Continuing to objective, they found the first group of Valari civilians huddled in a collapsed building. 24 of them, mostly children, their glowing skin flickering with terror. They screamed when the Marines appeared. Santos held up her hands, showing she was not a threat. "It is okay. We are here to help. We are here to help." The Valari did not understand her words, but they understood her tone. Slowly, carefully, they stopped screaming. An elderly Valari stepped forward, his glow weak and fading. "You are human?" he asked in broken common. "Yes," Santos replied. "We received your distress signal. We came to help." The elderly Valari stared at her for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, tears began to fall from his large eyes. "We thought no one would come," he whispered. "We thought we would die alone." Santos felt something tighten in her chest. "You are not alone anymore. Stay here. We will clear the area and come back for you." The Marines continued deeper into the city. They encountered more Krath patrols, larger and better organized. Each battle was intense, but short. Human weapons and human training proved superior in every engagement. Near the central plaza, they found something that made even Santos stop cold. A group of Krath soldiers had captured 50 Valari civilians. They had lined them up against a wall and were preparing to execute them. The Valari were weeping, holding each other, waiting for death. Santos did not hesitate. Weapons free. Take them down. 20 Marines opened fire at once. The Krath soldiers fell before they could react. In 5 seconds, it was over. The Valari prisoners stared at their rescuers with a mixture of terror and hope. Webb ran to a young Valari who had collapsed. The child's leg was injured, blue blood staining her delicate skin. He knelt beside her, pulling out his field medical kit. "It is okay, little one," he said softly. "I am going to help you." The child looked up at him with enormous eyes. She saw his face, rough and scarred from training accidents. She saw his hands, large and calloused. Everything about him should have been terrifying, but his eyes were kind. His voice was gentle. "And he was saving her life, monster?" she asked weakly. Webb smiled sadly. "Some people think so, but I am just a soldier, and soldiers protect people." He lifted her carefully and carried her to where Tran was setting up a field medical station. The medic worked quickly, using human medicine adapted for Valari biology. She saved 12 lives in the first hour alone. In orbit, the battle was ending. Admiral Carter counted the remaining enemy ships. 12, down from 83. Warlord Drethax is attempting to retreat with his flagship, Blake reported. Carter shook his head slowly. He does not get to retreat. Not after what he did. The Horizon moved to intercept the Devastator. The Krath flagship was massive, but it was damaged and alone. Its escorts had been destroyed. Carter opened the channel. "Drethax, this is your final chance. Surrender now, and you will face justice. Continue to flee, and you will die." The response came quickly, filled with rage. "I am Drethax. I have conquered 17 worlds. I do not surrender to anyone, least of all humans." "Very well." Carter closed the channel. "All weapons, target the flagship. Fire at will." The Horizon unleashed everything it had. Railgun rounds punched through the Devastator's armor. Missiles detonated against its hull. The mighty Krath flagship began to break apart, explosions rippling across its surface. The last transmission from Drethax was a scream of disbelief. Then the Devastator exploded, and the warlord, who had killed millions, died alone in the cold of space. On the surface, Santos received word that the last Krath ground forces had surrendered. She stood in the central plaza, surrounded by Marines and rescued civilians. The sun was rising over Thesan Prime for the first time since the invasion began. A young Velari boy approached her cautiously. He was small, barely reaching her waist, his glow soft and uncertain. "Are you really human?" he asked. Santos knelt down to his level. "Yes, I am. Everyone says humans are monsters. The scariest things in the galaxy." Santos thought about how to answer. "Maybe we are scary sometimes. But do you know what else we are?" The boy shook his head. "We are protectors. We find people who need help, and we help them. That is what we do." The boy considered this. Then, slowly, he reached out and touched her hand. His thin fingers were cool against her warm skin. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for coming." Santos felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. "You are welcome, little one. You are welcome." The battle was over. The Krath were defeated. And across Thesan Prime, the Valari began to realize that the monsters from the Death Zone had not come to conquer them. They had come to save them. 3 days had passed since the battle. The skies above Thesan Prime were clear again, though smoke still rose from the ruined cities. The Krath fleet had been completely destroyed. 83 warships reduced to floating debris. The invasion was over. Admiral Carter's shuttle descended through the atmosphere toward the Valari capital. He sat quietly, looking out the window at the damage below. Entire districts had been leveled. Millions of lives lost. It would take generations for this world to recover. Admiral, the pilot called back. We are approaching the landing zone. The Valari High Counselor is waiting. Carter straightened his uniform. Take us down. The shuttle landed in what had once been a beautiful plaza. Now it was filled with rubble and emergency shelters. Human soldiers moved among Valari civilians, distributing food and medical supplies. The sight would have seemed impossible just a week ago. High Counselor Nix Vara stood at the edge of the plaza, surrounded by her advisors. She watched the human shuttle land with a mixture of fear and gratitude. Behind her, thousands of Valari had gathered to witness this moment. Carter stepped out of the shuttle. He was not what Nix Vara had expected. The reports had described humans as terrifying monsters, creatures of war and destruction. But the man walking toward her looked tired. His gray hair was neat, his uniform clean, but there were shadows under his eyes. He looked like someone who had seen too much suffering. He stopped a few meters away and, to her surprise, bowed slightly. High Counselor, he said, his voice gentle. I am Admiral Daniel Carter. I wish we could have met under better circumstances. Nix Vara did not know how to respond. She had prepared speeches, diplomatic phrases, careful words. But standing before this human, all of that felt meaningless. You came, she said finally, when no one else would. You came, Carter nodded. We received your signal. We could not ignore it. But why? Nix Vara stepped closer. Your people do not know us. We have never met before. The galaxy sealed you away and pretended you did not exist. Why would you risk your lives for strangers? Carter was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. Because someone was hurting, and we could stop it. That is enough reason. Ambassador Tevriel moved forward. Admiral, your fleet suffered casualties. Your soldiers died for people they had never met. How can that be enough reason? We lost 4 people, Carter confirmed. 4 good soldiers who believed in something bigger than themselves. They knew the risks when they joined. They accepted those risks because they wanted to protect others. He looked around at the ruined city, at the frightened Valari, at the human soldiers helping where they could. This is what we do, Ambassador. We find those who cannot defend themselves, and we stand beside them. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes we pay a heavy price. But we never stop trying. Nix Vara felt something shift inside her. All her life, she had been taught to fear the unknown. The death zone, the Deathworlders, humanity. But standing here, looking at this tired old man who had crossed the galaxy to save her people, she realized the truth. The galaxy was wrong about you, she said softly. Carter smiled. Just a little. We are not perfect. We have done terrible things throughout our history. We have hurt each other in ways that are difficult to explain. But we are also capable of great kindness. Most humans, most of the time, just want to help. The crowd of Valari had grown larger. They pressed closer, trying to see the humans, trying to understand. Some were still afraid. Many had lost family in the invasion. But others looked at the human soldiers with something new in their eyes. Hope. A small Valari girl pushed through the crowd. It was Sariva, the child who had asked her mother if the humans were monsters. She walked right up to Carter and looked at him with her large, dark eyes. Are you the leader? She asked. Carter knelt down so he was at her level. I suppose I am. For this fleet, anyway. The craft killed my father. Sariva's voice was small but steady. He was a teacher. He never hurt anyone. Carter's expression softened with genuine pain. I am so sorry. I wish we could have arrived sooner, but you came. Sariva reached out and touched his hand, just as she had seen the boy touch Sergeant Santos. You came when no one else would. That means something. Carter held her small hand gently. It means everything to us too. Across the plaza, Sergeant Santos was teaching a group of Valari children a clapping game. Their high musical laughter mixed with her deeper human voice. Corporal Webb sat nearby, letting a young Valari examine his rifle while explaining that it was not a toy. Medic. Tran had set up a permanent medical station and was training Valari healers to use human equipment. She moved with calm efficiency, saving lives without asking for thanks. Nixvara watched all of this with wonder. What happens now, Admiral? Carter stood up, still holding the little girl's hand. That is up to you, High Counselor. We came to help, not to conquer. When your world is stable again, we will leave. Unless you want us to stay. Stay? Orensoul looked startled. You would stay? If you asked us to. As allies. As friends. Carter looked at the gathering crowd. The galaxy isolated us for 300 years. They were afraid of what we might do. I understand that fear. We are dangerous, but we are also loyal. If you accept our friendship, you will never face a threat like this alone again. Nixvara considered his words carefully. She thought about everything she had learned in the past few days. The ferocity of human combat, the gentleness of human compassion, the strange contradiction that made them both terrifying and wonderful. I must consult with my council, she said finally. But I believe I already know their answer. She took a step closer to Carter and extended her hand in the human gesture she had seen the soldiers use. Admiral Carter, on behalf of the Valari people, I thank you. Not just for saving us, but for showing us that we were wrong. You are not monsters. You are something far more remarkable. Carter took her hand gently, aware of how fragile her bones were compared to his. High Counselor, the honor is ours. Thank you for giving us a chance to prove ourselves. 1 week later, Nixvara sent a formal message to the Galactic Coalition. It was broadcast on every channel, received by every member species. To the peoples of the Coalition, she began, 300 years ago, you sealed away a species you feared. You called them Deathworlders and hid from them in the dark. I understand why you made that choice. I shared your fear, but I no longer share it. The humans came to us when no one else would. They fought for us. They died for us. They asked nothing in return except the chance to help. The Valari sovereignty formally requests that humanity be granted full diplomatic status within the Galactic Coalition. We believe that the isolation policy was a mistake. We believe that humanity deserves a place among us. They are not the monsters you feared. They are protectors. They are friends. And they are waiting for you to see them as we now see them. The message ended. Across the galaxy, 100 species debated what it meant. Some remained afraid. Old fears died hard. But others began to wonder if perhaps, just perhaps, the Valari were right. On Thesan Prime, Corporal Webb prepared to board the shuttle that would take him back to the horizon. The fleet was leaving soon, returning to Earth to report on their mission. But before he could walk up the ramp, a small hand grabbed his sleeve. Thought it was the young Valari girl he had saved during the battle. Her leg was healed now, wrapped in a bandage made of human medical supplies. You are leaving? She asked, her eyes wide. Webb knelt down beside her. Yes, little one. We have to go home. Will you come back? He smiled and gently touched her chin. If you ever need us, just call. We will come. I promise. She threw her arms around his neck in a hug. Webb held her carefully, amazed at how light she was. How delicate. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for being a good monster. Webb laughed, a warm sound that echoed across the plaza. You are welcome, little one. You are very welcome. He released her and walked onto the shuttle. As it lifted off, he looked down at the crowd of Valari waving farewell. He waved back, knowing that somehow, across all the vast distance of space, They have found something precious. Not conquest. Not fear. Connection. High. Counselor Nixvara recorded her final thoughts on the invasion in her personal journal that night. We sent our cry for help into the void, hoping someone would hear. The universe answered with its most terrifying children, and they came not to conquer, but to save us. Perhaps being a monster is not about what you are. Perhaps it is about what you choose to do with your strength. The humans chose to protect, and in doing so, they became something far greater than any monster. They became our friends. In the endless dark of space, the human fleet jumped to hyperspace. They left behind a world they had saved and a people who would never forget them. And somewhere, in other corners of the galaxy, other species in trouble began to wonder. If we called for help, would the humans answer? The answer, of course, was yes. Always yes.